θέλω να πιστεύω τάση, αλλά επειδή είναι άσπρο το όλο.
Ναι. Λοιπόν, παιδιά, ξεκινάμε σε 1 λεπτό. Να πω πρώτα καλή επιτυχία σε όλους και ευχαριστώ και όσους ήρθαν εδώ να παρακολουθήσουν το τελικό. Μαριάννα, είμαστε έτοιμοι. Βαθμούς. Δώσε τον Κώστα, δώσε τον Κώστα. Έχεις μικρόφωνο, θα είμαστε μαζί με το μικρόφωνο.
Ξεκινάμε. Καλημέρα σας. Καλώς ήρθατε στην τρίτη και τελευταία ημέρα του 4th Hellenic Young Naturalists Tournament 2023. Σε λίγο θα παρακολουθήσουμε ζωντανά το μεγάλο τελικό του διαγωνισμού. Μαζί μου είναι ο κύριος Απόστολος Μιχαλούδης, μέλος του Διοικητικού Συμβουλίου της Ένωσης Ελλήνων Φυσικών και εκπρόσωπος της Ελλάδας στους διεθνείς διαγωνισμούς IYNT και IYPT.
Καλημέρα σε όλους.
Απόστολε, νομίζω ότι είδαμε πολύ ανταγωνιστικές ομάδες το προηγούμενο διήμερο και δυνατούς αγώνες.
Πράγματι, όλα κύλησαν ομαλά και πλέον έχουμε φτάσει στον μεγάλο τελικό. Ίσως δεν έχετε καταλάβει, δεν υπάρχει πλέον φωνή. Θα προσπαθήσω να κάνω ό,τι καλύτερο μπορώ. Πραγματικά ήταν πολύ έντονο τριήμερο. Όμως, 3 από τις ομάδες μας κατάφεραν να εξασφαλίσουν μία θέση στον μεγάλο τελικό. Έτσι λοιπόν, έχουμε μαζί μας σήμερα εδώ τις εξής ομάδες. Τους Gravity Square από το Anatolia College. Του Shockwave από τα εκπαιδευτήρια Παλάδιο. Και τους Newtonian Ninjas από τα εκπαιδευτήρια Μαντουλίδη.
Συγχαρητήρια σε όλες τις ομάδες. Μην ξεχνάμε ότι για να βρίσκονται εδώ εργάστηκαν σκληρά καθ' όλη τη διάρκεια της σχολικής χρονιάς. Άσχετα από την τελική κατάταξη, είναι όλοι τους νικητές.
Θα συμφωνήσω μαζί σου, αλλά ας μην καθυστερούμε άλλο, ας ξεκινήσουμε σιγά σιγά. Θα ξεκινήσουμε παρουσιάζοντας την κριτική μας επιτροπή. Λοιπόν, στο σημερινό τελικό, η κριτική αποτελείται από τους κυρίους και τις κυρίες. Ας πούμε πρώτα αυτό. Τον κύριο Κώστα Βουρλιά, ειδικό γραμματέα της Ένωσης Ελλήνων Φυσικών και γενικό γραμματέα της BPU. Ευχαριστούμε πολύ. Καλή επιτυχία.
Καλημέρα. Θέλω να ευχηθώ σε όλους καλή επιτυχία, να απολαύσετε τον τελικό και εμείς θα κάνουμε από την πλευρά μας ό,τι είναι το καλύτερο για να αισθανθείτε στο τέλος δικαιοσύνη και να φύγετε όλοι χαρούμενοι.
Η κυρία Αλεξάνδρα Νικολαίδου, από την Ένωση Ελλήνων Φυσικών.
Καλημέρα και από μένα. Συγχαρητήρια σε όλα τα παιδιά που έχουν φτάσει εδώ για την προσπάθειά τους και εύχομαι να συνεχίζουν πάντα έτσι και να κατακτούν κορυφές. Μπράβο, παιδιά.
Ευχαριστούμε. Την κυρία Μαρία Καραβέλη, από το IYNT, πλέον έμπειρη κριτή στον διαγωνισμό. Ευχαριστούμε, κυρία Καραβέλη, που είστε εδώ μαζί μας.
Συγχαρητήρια σε όλους, παιδιά. Περιμένουμε να δούμε ένα πολύ ωραίο τελικό.
Miss Kunduz Turekanova from Kazakhstan. Thank you for being here.
Καλημέρα. And have a nice fight. Good luck.
Thank you. From Bulgaria, Mr. Mladen Matev. Thank you, Mr. Matev, for being here.
Thank you for being here. I'm looking forward to a great final and let the best team win. Good luck to all of you.
Thank you. Ο κύριος Στέφανος Μπούσιος, από το Αμερικάνικο Κολέγιο Pierce. Ευχαριστούμε, κύριε Μπούσιο.
Καλημέρα, πολλά συγχαρητήρια σε όλους. Σας αξίζουν πραγματικά πολλά συγχαρητήρια. Καλή επιτυχία στον αγώνα σήμερα. Να είστε καλά.
Και φυσικά τους δύο φοιτητές μας, οι οποίοι βοηθάνε πάρα πολύ στο διαγωνισμό όλες τις ομάδες, ο κύριος Θωμάς Παπατάσος.
Καλημέρα και από μένα. Μπράβο σε όλες τις ομάδες και καλή επιτυχία για σήμερα.
Ευχαριστούμε. Και ο κύριος Χρήστος Ραχαντάς.
Καλημέρα. Καλημέρα και από μένα. Εύχομαι καλή επιτυχία σε όλους και να δώσετε τον καλύτερο σας εαυτό.
Ευχαριστούμε πολύ όλους.
Ας μην καθυστερούμε λοιπόν. Παρακαλούμε τις ομάδες να πάρουν τις θέσεις τους. Ένα μεγάλο ευχαριστώ σε όλους τους εκπαιδευτικούς που εργάστηκαν σκληρά για να υποστηρίξουν τις ομάδες τους, αλλά και που βοήθησαν τον διαγωνισμό από τη δύσκολη θέση του κριτή.
Ωραία, οι ομάδες είναι στη θέση τους. Θα παρακαλέσω πρώτα τις ομάδες, τους captains, με την κατάταξη που είχαμε μέχρι τώρα ιεραρχικά, να παρουσιάσουν την ομάδα τους και να πούνε και ένα γεια. Πρώτα απ' όλα, από την ομάδα Gravity Square, από το Κολέγιο Ανατόλια, η captain της ομάδος, Άννη Ζούντσα.
Γεια σας και από μένα. Είμαι η Άννη και είμαι η captain της ομάδας Gravity Cubed. Μια γρήγορη εισαγωγή για την ομάδα μου. Βασιλική Αβιέρη, Γιώργος Γιάκας, Ελένη Τσαβδάρογου, Γρηγόρης Κασαπόπουλος και Ανθή Τσικουδή. Είμαστε πάρα πολύ ενθουσιασμένοι που θα έχουμε την ευκαιρία να αγωνιστούμε και σήμερα σε αυτό το τελικό fight. Και ανυπομονούμε να δούμε πώς θα πάει και τι θα μας παρουσιάσουν οι ομάδες. Καλή επιτυχία σε όλους.
Ευχαριστούμε πολύ και καλή επιτυχία. Από τους Shockwave Παλάδιο, ο κάπτεν της ομάδος, Αλμπέρτο Μπαρκής.
Γεια σας, είμαι ο Αλμπέρτο Μπαρκής, ο κάπτεν της ομάδας Shockwave. Γρήγορα τα ονόματα της ομάδας μας, η Τίνα Κοβουτσάκη, ο Οδυσσέας Διβέρης, Θάνος Παπαδημητρίου, Σταμάτης Φαντής και Γιώργος Σιδεράκης. Είμαστε πολύ χαρούμενοι και πιστεύουμε ότι μας άξιζε να έρθουμε σε αυτή τη θέση και να έχουμε την ευκαιρία να διεκδικήσουμε το τρόπαιο. Ας νικήσει καλύτερη ομάδα.
Και από τους Newtonian Ninjas, τον εκπαιδευτήριο Μαντουλίδη, ο κάπτεν της ομάδος, κύριος Δημήτρης Ιγνατιάδης.
Γεια σας, είμαι από την ομάδα Newtonian Ninjas, είμαι ο κάπτεν ο Δημήτρης Ιγνατιάδης. Η ομάδα μου είναι ο Καϊμάκης Αλέξανδρος, ο Δημήτρης ο Τούλης, ο Καρασμάνης ο Σταύρος, ο Προμηθέας ο Νίκου και ο Καπλάνης ο Ανδρέας. Είμαστε πάρα πολύ χαρούμενοι που φτάσαμε μέχρι τον τελικό, γιατί είναι κάτι που πραγματικά κουραστήκαμε πάρα πολύ για να καταφέρουμε και ελπίζουμε να τα πάμε καλά και να έχουμε έναν πολύ καλό τελικό. Γεια σας.
Ευχαριστούμε πολύ όλα τα παιδιά και συγχαρητήρια. Καλή επιτυχία σε όλες τις ομάδες. Λοιπόν, σχετικά με τη διαδικασία, ουσιαστικά πρόκειται για άλλο ένα science fight. Τα παιδιά ήδη έχουν παίξει 4 τέτοια, γνωρίζουν. Αυτό που θα κάνουμε είναι το εξής. Έχουν ήδη επιλέξει οι ομάδες το πρόβλημα που επιθυμούν να παρουσιάσουν. Ο αγώνας θα αποτελείται από 3 stages. Σε κάθε stage η κάθε ομάδα θα παρουσιάσει το πρόβλημα που επιθυμεί. Η σειρά με την οποία κλείνονται να παρουσιάσουν τα παιδιά καθορίζεται με βάση την κατάταξή τους μέχρι και τους ημιτελικούς. Οπότε, κυρία Ζούντσα, θα μας πείτε λίγο την σειρά με την οποία θα παίξουμε σήμερα.
Η ομάδα μας αποφάσισε να ξεκινήσουν με το report της Shockwave. Εμείς θα κάνουμε opposition και οι Newtonian Ninjas θα κάνουν review και μετά με τη σειρά με τους κανονισμούς όπως πάει ανάλογα.
Η κριτική μας επιτροπή είναι έτοιμη, θα βαθμολογήσει τις ομάδες. Να σημειωθεί ότι το σκορ των ομάδων από τους προηγούμενους αγώνες δεν μετράει καθόλου, άρα όποιος κερδίσει σήμερα είναι και ο λεγόμενος απόλυτος νικητής. Καλή επιτυχία λοιπόν σε όλους. Πριν όμως ξεκινήσουμε, να τιμήσουμε τις ομάδες από το Καζακστάν, οι οποίες ήρθαν εδώ πέρα σαν τιμόμενη χώρα, έχουν ετοιμάσει μία μικρή παρουσίαση να σας δείξουν. So, Team Kazakhstan, please come to the stage.
So my name is Dimash, and I'm the captain of the team Mega Alma from the Kazakhstan, and I really liked the time that I spent in Greece competing with each of you, and I'm proudly inviting in Almaty, Kazakhstan, IYNT that will be held in Bobek, the Astro School. So I liked the most that I like in Greece is the positive people. I can communicate with each of you, and I like the attitude that you had there. And I wish you good luck, all three teams in the finals. So that's that I want to say.
Hello everyone, my name is Aisha and I'm the member of the team Heaven from Kazakhstan. I want to express a big gratefulness for each of you for the amazing fights. I had a lot of fun and that was a really good experience for me. I invite the teams that got into finals to Kazakhstan to IYNT that will be held in August in our city Almaty, and wish you luck in finals. And now you're gonna watch the video about our city, about our country, Kazakhstan. One video.
Кто это делал? Кто это делал?
Hello everyone, this is Team Heaven.
So thank you everyone and good luck. We will waiting you from Kazakhstan and yes, good luck everyone.
Thank you very much, guys. We really hope that we can see you in August. But this time we will be the ones visiting your country. Σας ευχαριστούμε όλους. Λοιπόν, χωρίς άλλη καθυστέρηση, ανακηρύσουμε την έναρξη του μεγάλου τελικού. Από εδώ και πέρα, όπως απαιτούν οι κανονισμοί, όλοι οι διάλογοι θα γίνονται στα αγγλικά. Μετά το τέλος του διαγωνισμού θα ακολουθήσει η τελετή βράβευσης και απονομής μεταλλίων. Καλή επιτυχία!
Welcome to the final fight of the 4th Hellenic Young Naturalists Tournament. Everything is ready. Please start the clock. Reporter, you have 3 minutes to prepare.
Okay, I'm taking over with the functions for the jury. As I said, my name is Mladen Matev. I will be chairing this session. We are in the preparation time at the moment. I have several things that I always mention at the beginning of a fight. Let's make sure that all of you can see the screen well and the clock very well from the places where you're seated. I trust that you have ensured free passages between your tables and chairs so that you can run to the stage if you need to deliver written messages to your team members. I am going to be very strict about the timing regulations, as you already know. So the clock will not be started until I say so. I will announce at the end of every stage. If you need to finish your sentence, I will give you a chance to do so. So if the clock ends, nevertheless, I may tell you to finish your sentence. That means that you have to finish your sentence as soon as you can. I'm not going to interrupt you in the middle of the word, but if the clock sounds and you have something to say to the end of the sentence, that means that you have to finish as soon as you can. When I say that there is preparation time, that means that whenever a team is in preparation, we have to keep the noise level down. We have to give them quiet time so that they will prepare. So, if there is noise, I'm going to ask you to be quiet. Don't make me remind you about that. If you have any questions, now is the time to ask them. I trust that all of you know the regulations well enough. Any questions, remarks, comments? If you need something, ask Apostolos or the people attending our session. Okay, we're approaching the end of the preparation time. If you need to connect your computer, do it during your preparation time, at the end of your preparation time, not after the clock has ended, right? So that we don't waste time between the different stages. Is the team ready?
Yes.
Okay, very good. You have 8 minutes, starting now.
So I'm Yorgos Siderakis, and I'm going to be presenting problem number 2, knots. This is a problem to be investigated. If a piece of rope is attached to the end of another rope with a knot, the knot may still fail to hold or break or unravel under certain conditions. Investigate the factors affecting knot strength. Introduction. What is a knot? A knot is when interlacing or, entwining 2 ropes together in a lump or a knob to tie them together, bond them together to hold them, the 2 ropes together. So there are different types of knots that usually vary in strength. The knot strength usually depends on the complexity and the number of wraps in the knot. Theory. Another factor that can affect the ease of unraveling a knot is the type of material the rope is made of. Some materials such as nylon or synthetic fibers are more slippery than others, such as cotton or jute may require less force to untie a knot. We experimented with a type of material shown below, cotton, jute, and wool. This is the theory for the 2 different types of knots we used. There are many different types of knots. We specifically used 3 different types of knots: the double overhand, the triple overhand, and the quadruple overhand. When tying a knot, the amount of force required to untie it is proportional to the number of wraps in the knot. This is because each turn in the knot increases the friction between the 2 ropes, making it harder to pull them apart. Additionally, the shape of the knot can also affect the force required to break it. For example, a knot with a lot of sharp turns or angles can be harder to break because of creating more points of friction. Theory for friction. Friction is the force that is opposing to the direction of the motion, and it depends on the roughness and the nature of the two surfaces being in contact, and the pressure and the forces acting upon each other. When water is applied to a rope, the surface is getting smoother because of the lubricant effect of the water. These are the hypotheses. The thicker the rope, the more force is needed to unravel the knot. 2, a Utah knot will require more force to unravel compared to wool. A double overhand will require less force than a triple, and a triple less than a quadruple overhand to unravel. And a wet knot of the same type will require less force to unravel than a dry one. In instrumentation apparatus, we used three thicknesses of cotton rope, one wool rope, one Utah rope, a phone for recording purposes, a vernier caliper to measure the rope thickness, a dynamometer which had up to 50 newtons force, a tape measure to measure the rope length, and scissors to cut the rope. Control variables 1. The rope thickness is the independent variable, dependent is the force to unravel a knot, and control is the rope material, length, knot type, and tightness of the knot. This is the experimental procedure of hypothesis 1. We tied 2 cotton ropes together using the same knot. As the rope thickness was our independent variable, it altered between the experiments. We measured the force needed in order for the knot to unravel. One side of the rope was tied to the dynamometer with a double overhand, and each experiment was conducted 5 times, and each time we used a new rope, so not every previous one was used. This is the results. We conducted the experiment and saw that the thicker rope resulted in a larger force required to unravel them, with some not unraveling having reached the maximum scale of the dynamometer, which is 50 newtons. The fact that some knots required more than 50 newtons is irrelevant because we compared the knot strength to one another and not the force individually. This is the conclusion. In summary, basically, the larger the thickness of the rope and the material is the same, the force to unravel will be higher. So the hypothesis is confirmed. Control variables 2. Independent material type, dependent the force required to unravel the knot again, and control the rope thickness, length, knot type, and knot tightness. Experimental procedure. For this experiment, we follow the same logic as the experiment 1. We conducted the experiment with both Utah and the wool in order to collect data and confirm or deny our hypothesis. Again, we changed each rope for each attempt we made. This is the results. We can observe that Utah material does indeed require more strength to unravel when comparing to wool, with a Utah knot breaking at 50 newtons, but we cannot measure further as the dynamometer had reached its max value. This is the conclusion. The Utah material, as we saw previously, required much more force to break. So we believe that our experiments are justified by the difference of roughness in the two materials. Control variables 3. Knot type, force required to unravel, and control rope thickness, material length, and knot tightness. This is the experimental procedure 3. In this experiment, again, the same logic as experiment 1. We did the experiments with different knots and again changed each rope to make another attempt. These are the results. The outcome of the experiment was a triple compared to a double overhand with a significant strength difference. And the quadruple one, again, increased the force required to break the knot. So in conclusion, the more complex the knot, the more force is required to break one another. And this is, again, backed up by our theory. Control variable 3. This is the independent one, wet or dry rope, dependent the knot strength and the point in which it unravels, and control the material, length, thickness, knot type, and the person tying the knots or the tightness. So again, we use the same experimental logic. We conducted the experiment using a dry cotton rope, and then taking 5 different ropes and then submerging them in water, then tie them together, and again measure the force that they would break apart. This is the results for hypothesis 4. The results were that a wet rope requires less force than a dry one to break, with a pretty big difference, I would say. this is the conclusion. In summary, the experiment procedure and the analysis of our results verify our hypothesis, and the wet knot required less force to break than its dry counterpart. We believe this is because the cotton is highly absorbent, therefore it can absorb quite a bit of water, which can affect the friction by acting as a lubricant. This is our uncertainties. It must be noted that because the dynamometer, only the scale went up by 1 Newton each time, if there might be an error of 1 Newton in each measurement because of the dynamometer going in between the scale. Also, we can observe an anomaly in hypothesis 1 where the thickness of the 1.6 millimeter rope and the 1 millimeter rope is very different. And, but we conducted the experiment 5 times and the result was similar each time, with the average again being the values we showed in the graphs. These are our references. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for this report. Now, the opponent has a chance to ask some clarifying questions for 3 minutes, starting now.
Thank you for your presentation. So, firstly, I want to ask you, was the temperature a control variable?
Why would temperature affect the
so you didn't control the temperature?
We did not control it.
Okay, I disagree with you. I think it affects. Did you control the humidity of the room?
No, but why
that
would I
also
need
affects.
to...
I'll explain to you
Okay.
later. I disagree with you. So how did you measure the length of the rope? You mentioned
you
with a
use a
measuring
tape
tape.
measure. A tape
Do you
measure.
think that that's a reliable method to measure the length of the rope?
Yeah, if indeed it wasn't, say it wasn't, we had the same tape measure for each and one rope, so again it wouldn't make a difference.
So you measured the rope using your hands?
No, the tape measure.
Yeah, you hold the tape measure by your hands. So you depended the measurements on human ability.
But
Why didn't you
again, it was the same procedure for all of the ropes.
But
so
why
there
didn't you
wasn't any-
use another method such as a tracker, for example, to measure the length of the rope?
It's just so much simple, and I think such minuscule differences in the rope length wouldn't make such a big difference that will be observable in the graphs.
You mentioned in your inaccuracies, your possible errors, that the dynamometer had an inaccuracy. How much was the
No, basically the scale went up by 1. So if say the force required was between 1 and 2, the error would be half and half. So around that.
so
That's
you
why
don't know the accuracy of the
No,
tool
no.
you used?
The scale goes up by 1.
Yeah, I understood that, but how much was the accuracy of the tool?
What do you mean? What's the accuracy of the tool?
Behind the tools, there is a percentage of how much accurate they are. Do you know the accuracy of the tools you used?
Nothing was mentioned about the accuracy of the tools.
Did you control...
And if say it wasn't accurate, it's the same for all. So there's no point in saying that it's not accurate.
Did you control the rope elasticity?
How would I do that?
There is a way to control the rope elasticity. I will mention to you in the discussion. But you didn't control nor the humidity or the temperature, which affected the elasticity. So by not controlling the elasticity, you didn't have that parameter control.
Yeah, but it's the same rope every time, so the elasticity is the same throughout the whole rope.
Okay. So, in the graph that you showed, there were no error bars. Do you believe that
Yeah, there were error bars, but the projector didn't show them. See.
Oh.
There were error bars, but the
And
projector...
how did you calculate these error bars?
As I said, the uncertainty is in the down slide is 1 Newton up and down as...
So this is the only thing that you calculated as an error bar, so you didn't take into consideration the accuracy of the tools or other factors.
Yeah,
such
but
as
the
temperature.
accuracy of the tools might be different, but it's the same tool for every rope.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now we have 3 minutes of preparation time for the opponent. Please keep the noise level down. Starting now. Please keep it quiet. Quiet, please. If you need to set up a presentation, now is the time to do it. Yeah. Sure. I was also told that there are at least 2 or 3 perhaps microphones working in front, so please make good use of them. Okay. Oh, that one. All right. Your time is up, so we are ready to start with the statement of the opponent. 4 minutes starting now.
So, hello, my name is HellenicYNT, and I'm from Team Gravity Cube, and today I'm going to be presenting you the opposition for problem number 2. So I think we're all familiar.
You are already pause the time. You must power the time. You must wear the microphone, please. Not the Okay, are you ready?
Is it okay now?
Apparently they're recording also, so you may have to start from the beginning. Are you ready? Starting now.
Hello, my name is HellenicYNT, and I'm from Team Gravity Cube, and today I'm going to be presenting you the opposition for problem number 2, not. I think we are familiar with the problem to be investigated, so let's move on. First of all, the introduction to the phenomenon was quite good. The theoretical explanation lacked some things, for example, about the fourth hypothesis about how wet the rope was. The experimental setup was not good since they didn't show exactly where the tools were. The experiments were average, data analysis was average, and the conclusions were quite good because they were connected with the theoretical explanation, most of them. So, about the theory. First of all, hypotheses 1 and 3 are connected and supported by the theory. And the theory, there's good theory about different knot types and about the knot types they actually use. So about the quadruple, the triple, and double overhand. However, there was no connection of the fourth hypothesis to the theory, as I mentioned before. The fourth hypothesis stated about the wet and the dry knot ropes, but there was no theory about that. There was no throughout explanation of theory. They didn't explain what the differences between the different ropes that they used were thoroughly. They might have mentioned some basic knowledge, but we didn't understand how it could affect the results. The parameters affecting the knot strengths were not explained thoroughly, and no theory about the humidity and temperature affect the ropes. Humidity and temperature affect the elasticity of the ropes. And by not controlling this, the elasticity of the ropes were not controlled. So no theory about the wetness of the rope, as I mentioned before. The fourth hypothesis talked about that part, and we didn't have any theory. So about the experiment and the results. First of all, you included graphs to show the results, which had error bars. They used the dynamometer to ensure some percentage of reliability of the results, and they were sufficient times conducting the experiment. More specifically, they did the experiment 5 times, which means that the results should be reliable. However, they didn't control some important parameters, as I mentioned before, such as the temperature and the humidity, which, as I mentioned before, affect the elasticity. They did not take into account the possible error of the dynamometer inaccuracy. In the back of each tool, there is how accurate it is, and they didn't even see the inaccuracy. They didn't control it to the standard deviation, so we could not know how reliable exactly how this affected the results. There was no photos of the experimental setup. We didn't know exactly which tools they used. They also mentioned that they used a measuring tape in order to measure the length of the rope, but that's not an efficient way, since it depends on human ability. And there was not sufficient amount of references. I think there were 3 references that did not support, I don't think that they could support the theory. So, some suggestion for further improvement: you should show photos of your experimental setup and procedure, exactly what tools you used, where did you place each one, explain the theory more in depth, how could, why the differences between the knots, why did you use these knots, what factors did you choose in order to use this knot. Be aware of the tool inaccuracy. You have to be aware of and subtract it from the error in order to be sure. And control important environmental parameters such as temperature, humidity, and etc. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. Very good. So now it's the time for the discussion. Let's have the reporter to the stage. And opponent, when you're ready, we're starting the discussion. Reporter to the stage, please. Yeah.
Okay.
Reporter to the stage. Discussion is starting. You have 5 minutes beginning now.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I have a question for you. Can you explain to me more thoroughly why you used these types of ropes? Because I didn't exactly understand.
Because they're a common type of rope and they're pretty simple to find. It's a pretty simple rope, and it's pretty easy to find.
No,
that it's
this
used.
type, I asked about the knot, not the rope.
Oh, sorry. The knot is simple again. It's very common and it's used throughout many occasions. And it's
But you
pretty
used
relatable.
3 different types of knots.
Yeah, these 3 types of knots are really common and used in many places.
So, like, the only factor that you took into consideration in order to use these knots were that they were most common.
Oh, they're
used.
simple and pretty easy enough to do and
Like,
understand.
you
and
didn't
control.
take into consideration factors such as the fluctuation or the circulation that the knot has that affects how durable the knot is and the knot efficiency. There are some factors such as the circulation of the knot or the twist fluctuation over the stand crossings that affect how the knot efficiency, how durable the knot is, and how easily it could break. You didn't take that into consideration in order to choose the knot types.
I guess not. I want to say something. You mentioned how hypothesis 4 with a dry and wet rope isn't connected to the theory when I clearly put some theory in. Wait. In here, when words apply to a cotton rope, the friction between the rope
Yeah, but
and
you
the other surfaces
don't
make
mention
effect.
why the friction.
Yeah, because of the lubrication effect, as I mentioned before. Because when the rope is submerged in water, it absorbs the water, then it becomes oversaturated with water, then I guess kind of the water stays on the surface of the rope, then again acting as a lubricant.
I think that you should have explained it more thoroughly in your presentation in order for me to understand, but thank you. I want to ask you, why do you think that the temperature doesn't play a role, or the humidity?
I mean, it might play a role. Do you have any theory about that?
Yeah, I do actually have any theory about that. So, first of all, about the temperature. When the temperature rises, the knot elasticity decreases, and when the temperature is more lower, the knot elasticity increases.
Okay, but the thing is, the experiments we did were conducted in the same room.
You didn't mention that in your presentation. You didn't mention anything about the experimental environment. So how could I know that the experimental environment was controlled? I couldn't.
Okay.
And what about the humidity?
It was also in the same room. Do you think that the humidity can fluctuate so much in such a small amount of time that could affect an observable?
Yeah, I do. Because
Okay.
listen, like you used a cotton rope.
Yeah.
Yeah. If the rope is made like for natural fibers such as cotton, high humidity can cause the fibers to absorb moisture, and which can make the rope more elastic as well. You said that you didn't control the temperature, the humidity,
Yeah, it was the same rope though. We are comparing in the same room for the same rope. So if one got the moisture from the humidity in the air, the other would as well take the same
But
humidity.
if you were to control like these factors, how would you control them?
I didn't.
Okay.
Like, what do you want me to do?
For example, use a hygrometer or the thermometer.
And then how the thermometer does not control the environmental.
What do you think would happen if you used another rope type, such as polyester, which is synthetic?
I guess we will observe similar results, as the theory says that by the way, for which hypothesis?
I'm telling you, for example, for the first hypothesis.
With a thicker rope.
Yeah, what do you think would happen if you used, for example, a synthetic rope?
It would be basically the same conclusion as the theory suggests.
About the fourth one?
I mean, the fourth one really depends on how much water the rope itself can absorb.
Yeah, but if you use a synthetic rope, the water cannot be absorbed that easily. So what do you think will happen? Do you think that it would affect the results?
It might have a small fluctuation in the way that the wet might be closer to the dry one, but not. We will see like the same results overall.
Okay. And so about the errors, you mentioned that you didn't take in consideration like the errors of the devices that you used. Do you think that affects your results, doesn't it?
By how much do you think?
It could be affected. Like, by how much? I do not know the accuracy of your device, so I cannot say exactly
what
how
device?
much. The dynamometer.
Yeah, it might have an inaccuracy, but it's the same for all. So there's no point in saying that they're
And what about the measuring tape?
It's again the same for all.
So
finish your statement. Okay, thank you very much for this discussion. Okay, it is time for the clarifying questions from the reviewer to the reporter and the opponent. Please, the reporter and the opponent stay on stage. And we're giving the word to the reviewer, starting now, 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you. So the first question for the reporter. You said that you were increasing the force by 1 Newton each time. How exactly did you do that?
I said that the scale of the dynamometer went up by 1 Newton each time.
So it wasn't... And how then, if you do that, how did you measure the knot when like they tear apart or break without a concentrate? Because it doesn't say something about concentrate.
Can you repeat the question? Okay.
Did you measure the...
This is yours. Okay, okay.
Hold the clock.
Okay. Did you measure...
Wait. Is everything okay then? Microphone.
Okay. Θέλετε αυτά.
Εσείς, παιδιά, ακούστε το και τελευταία φορά. Εσείς το φοράτε εδώ. Είναι δικιά σας ευθύνη από εκεί πέρα που φοράτε. Αξιολογήστε γι' αυτό. Και γι' αυτό.
Is everything okay now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, continuing with the clock.
So, yes, did you measure the strength of the knot with a concentrate, or you just...
what do you mean by the concentrate?
Yeah, pulling it with a concentrate, like 1 Newton per second or something like that, or just...
No, we just pulled the thing and...
Okay, thank you. Another question. You meant something about complexity and shape of knots. What exactly is that?
That's a amount of wraps and the complexity as a structure in the rope itself, the knot itself.
Okay, and moreover, you didn't specify knot used in the first hypothesis, if I am correct.
Yeah, it was the same for all. It's a double overhand.
Okay. And one question for the opponent. You mentioned circulation. What's exactly that, and how you can, measure it?
Yeah, there are some factors.
Yeah, about circulation.
Yeah,
how
okay.
Can you measure
circulation is how much, the rope,
yes.
Surpasses the other one, goes like that. I have to show you in a picture.
Yes.
Yeah, and you can measure it by measuring how much time the cross it's won. A rope, for example, an overhand rope, it's really simple and the circulation is really low. But for example, the 3-pull-1, the circulation is more.
Okay. What other factors affecting the rope strength?
Finish your sentence.
Other factors are twist fluctuation, strand crossing.
Thank you. Okay. All right. It's time for the preparation of the reviewer. So I hope that you understand that you need to keep it quiet. The reviewer has 2 minutes for preparation, starting now. If you need to set up a presentation, now is the time. And this is the end of your preparation time. Are you ready to start? Thank you. Ready to start? Statement of the reviewer. 3 minutes beginning now.
What happened?
You can start talking if you want to.
So my name is Dimitris Ignatiadis. I'm from Team Newtonian Ninjas and I'm reviewing 4 notes. First of all, the problem statements. If a piece of rope is attached to an end of another rope with a knot, the knot may still fail to hold, break, or unravel under certain conditions. Investigate the factors affecting the knot strength. So, first of all, for the reporter, the pros. For the theoretical insight, if they had the material of rope and the friction, some parameters were the knot type and the rope diameter, which are very important, and some variation of relevant parameters were that change diameter, the change type of knot, and wetness of rope. But they had some problems with the theoretical model. They had not sufficient theory why some knots are stronger than the other, as the opponent mentioned the circulation, the twist fluctuation, and the number of crossings. They hadn't theory for the 4th hypothesis and how water affects the knots nowhere in their time presentation. And moreover, they had bad predictive power of theoretical model. There was nowhere. Not sufficient theory again. Contradicting point also, they said that they used different rope, but when they asked why they had the same humidity, they said that it was the same rope, so the same humidity, which is wrong. And they had no visual aid and no video of the experiment, so we wouldn't see if they actually did the experiment, and they had humidity temperature not controlled. For the opponent, they correctly pointed out that they didn't measure elasticity, they didn't control humidity and temperature, they had a problem with the 4th hypothesis, they had insufficient theory, and the problem with the dynamometer that they didn't measure the precision. And the cons, they didn't notice the error bars that they were in some graphs. They didn't notice photos of the experimental setup because they said that they weren't, but they had apparatus, they were too aggressive during the clarifying questions. They pointed out low accuracy by measuring with tape measured by hand, which we don't think that's low accuracy. And they measured circulation, but didn't explain it quite well when they asked. Missed points. They didn't focus too much on problem with theory. That was the most main problem with the presentation. Suggest for improvement, better control of variables, more photos of experimental procedures for the reporter, and for the opponent, focus more on significant problems, pay more attention to the presentation. So, the discussion topics. Opponent asked why choose these specific notes, because they are commonly used. We agree with the opponent because these some notes we mainly use, and it's very good. The opponents next asked why does friction affect the problem. The reporter said that it's because the nodes have friction, so the bench doesn't hold too good. And we agree with the opponent that they needed to ask this question. And
finish your sentence.
Did you consider temperature? They said that they conducted the experiment with the same condition, but there was a possibility of error.
Thank you very much. Okay, this is the end of your statement. Now we have 1 minute for concluding remarks of the opponent. Let's have the opponent to the stage. 1 minute starting now.
First of all, I would like to thank both the reporter and the reviewer for this stage. I will take your suggestions into consideration, but I would like to mention that the results of the report could not be that reliable due to lack of some control parameters, such as elasticity, humidity, temperature, and the representation. They did not mention that the experimental setup was controlled, and there was a lack of theory about the fourth hypothesis, and like how the friction affects when the rope is wet. They did not analyze that thoroughly. Overall, thank you again. It was a nice stage.
Thank you for this concluding remark. And 1 minute also for the concluding remarks of the reporter. 1 minute starting now.
I want to thank everyone for being here and for your attention, but I want to add some things further to end this stage. I want to say that the opponent mentioned how the experimental results, in the experimental results, part in the statement, a con was the references were too little. This has nothing to do with experimental results, the references. Also, the theory of friction were present. And there were experimental photos of the procedure and the instruments and apparatus. Also, the reviewer, I want to say something. You mentioned how 2 times in the reviewer statement that we didn't have enough sufficient theory for the knots. You mentioned that 2 times in the cons, in the experimental result part and the theory part. What's about that? Like, yeah, it's 2 times in the
not the time for the discussion now.
I want to thank for everyone for being here. Thank you for your attention.
Are you done? Very well. Thank you very much. Now we can have some clarifying questions from the jury. If you want. If you have any. Anyone? Yes.
Okay, I'd like to ask to the opponent, you mentioned many parameters. For example, the temperature effect. What is your opinion? I think you mentioned that when the temperature rises, the elasticity decreases.
No, I mentioned the opposite. Like, temperature can have a significant effect on the elasticity of the rope. Like, when a rope is exposed to high temperatures, its elasticity decreases. And when its elasticity decreases. And while exposed to low temperature, its elasticity increases.
Okay. Thank you very much.
I would like to ask the reporter, how many trials did you have per hypothesis?
We have, wait. We had,
You can't hold it.
okay. We had 5 trials per, not hypothesis, per like attempt. For example, the 0.5 millimeter rope thicknesses, we did 5 times for each thickness, and so 15 times in total.
5 for each thickness. Okay.
Yeah.
5 trials.
Or
Okay.
like 5 trials per type we tested.
Per
and
measurement.
then,
Thank you.
Any other questions? So we can get to the grading part. Thank you very much. Don't rush it. We have plenty of time. Don't worry. Take your time. Take your time. No rush. Okay. We want to make sure that the seal can sign, seal can sign, seal can sign, sign. Waiting for one juror. One juror waiting. Okay, all forms have been filled and signed. The jury is ready to show the grades for the team of the reporter. Let's prepare the grades and I will read them from the right to the left. Are you ready to show them? Let's show the grades, starting from right to left. Let's raise all of them. And I'm reading 18, 22, 19, 20, 23, 22, 21, and 21. The jury is preparing the grades for the team of the opponent. Are we ready? Reading from the right to the left. 13, 13, 14, 14, 18, 16, 18, and 18. And finally, the grades for the team of the reviewer. Are we ready? Starting from the right to the left, we have 8, 8, 9, 9, 8, 7, 8, and 7. Thank you very much. We are going to skip the comments as asked by the organizers because we don't have much time for that. You can ask afterwards in private. Then we can take.
Okay, thank you very much.
Back to Apostles.
For the first stage, thank you. Let's have 5 minutes break and we continue with stage number 2.